up to that point in my life, I was delegating away my health and my strength to doctors, to other people. I never forget when a doctor told me that I should probably pick up golf to do something low impact. And I took that and I believed that, right? And I thought, okay, well then I can kiss goodbye some of the dreams I have of like running a marathon or triathlon. Maybe that's just not for me. And going to him and going to doctors to look for the answers. And the answers came in the form of prescriptions. And I didn't want to do a Percocet prescription. I just didn't want to do it.
And we are live. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Allsmith. Today's guest is the co-founder of Edge Theory, a company known for developing innovative cold therapy solutions, particularly through their portable ice baths. He's a strong advocate for the benefit of cold exposure for both physical and mental health. And we were spitballing offline, just having way too much fun just now. Today, I'd love to introduce Joshua Church. What's up, man?
Hey, brother. Thanks for having me here.
Dude, I'm pumped to connect.
Yeah.
I feel like we hit it off already, and it's
Totally.
like, why didn't we record all that?
Yeah, we should have just started recording when we sat down.
I think about that sometimes. It's the beauty of like the in-between of like just the original connection. And then you're like, oh, we have to be formal now. But it's like one of my favorite quotes, you never really grow up. You just learn how to act in public. Sometimes.
Sometimes. That's good.
Dude, thanks for coming down.
Yeah, my pleasure. Love to be here in the studio with you guys and stoked to be here for a convo.
This is cool. You're a young buck too. You're doing some cool things. Like, how old are you?
I just turned 30 this 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Welcome to the other side.
Thank you. The 2 days before my 30th birthday, I pulled my back out lifting up my nephew after I was water skiing and an active day up at the lake and went for a long run. And then I like overextended and reached just in the wrong angle and like my back locked up and I was like, oh crap. Thankfully, I was able to like over the next couple of days, I had a cold tub up there, hot tub, breath work. Like I've developed such a relationship with my body to where it's like I felt that fear come in of like, oh my God, this is bad. I'm going to have to cancel my trip to Europe. I can't walk. Oh no, oh no. And that fear started locking my body up. And I'm like, all right, let me just breathe with that. Just filled my body with white light, just filled my body up, and then started doing my breath work, started doing my cold and hot. And over the next 3-4 days, 5 days later, totally back up, went for a run.
Wow, that's actually really cool. Something that comes to mind there is the body keeps the score. You know, maybe you're having too much fun. Maybe you're overwhelmed. Maybe there's X, Y, and Z physiological response. But what you've come to realize is, okay, let me do a self-assessment. Let me process. Let me do the power of the pause. I'm not going to freak out. I'm not going to get married to worst case scenarios. Get high on your own supply.
Damn straight.
All right, let's take a second to analyze. And then we can use the various tools to then move the needle in the right direction.
That's right.
And like you just epitomized that through an experience that landed in your lap without anything, and that your ability to adapt is so cool.
Yeah, thanks, man. And it was funny, right after it happened, my dad was like, well, welcome to 30. Like, this is what it's like. Wait till you turn 60. And that's been a story that I've been working on rewriting as well, because I grew up and had a lot of injuries, some really traumatic injuries, 4 major surgeries before I was 21 years old, and was at a place at 21 where I was living in such chronic pain that I was having to take 200 milligrams, 400 milligrams of ibuprofen every single day just to get through the day. And
oh, man.
I was like, this can't be my reality. Like, if this is what I feel now, by 30, I literally had a thought by 30 I was going to be in a wheelchair. Like, that was a thought that I had in my mind. I don't know why or how that was planted there, but of all the injuries that I had, I just thought my body's just frail and weak and not strong, and there's no recovering from this. We have one body, we have one life. This is terminal, right? And that's why I thank God that I discovered the tools, the powerful tools, like you were saying, to add to the tool belt, like breath work, like Wim Hof method, like cold immersion, like yoga, to start to tune into the body, build a relationship, a two-way relationship with my body. We're talking earlier about the pain, pushing through the pain, instead of just saying, body, shut up, let's go, we're going this direction, which I got so good at doing. All of a sudden being able to open up my ears to hear the messages of my body, the whispers of my body coming through, and build a relationship there of how can I work with this, and to start to see that we can shift and that it's not terminal, and that you can heal, you can recover, you can regain strength, you can regain flexibility, you can regain a sense of vigor for life. And I've been, devoted my life to that practice and saw such tremendous results that I couldn't not start to share that with other people.
Your passion is palpable right now. Like, I can feel it. It's super cool because pain seems to be the world's greatest teacher. And I hate that. but I also love it, right?
Yep.
Like on the other side of discomfort or fear is everything you want typically.
Amen.
And like you and I both know, I did it about an hour ago. You walk out to the cold and you're like, fuck, I gotta do this thing again.
Yep.
And you step, and the moment I step in, I'm like, I already committed.
Yep.
Like I felt it on the body, like walk forward. Then upon that exhale is how I kind of sit down, nuzzle in. I like to do the nose pinch and a dunk. And then when I come back, I allow myself, per Dr. Andrew Huberman, rather than like, I'm stoic, I'm fine. I literally go,
It's great.
and that's where I nuzzle in. And at that point, like, you realize no matter what the external environment, no matter what you were thinking about, no matter what the stresses are, your bank account, fights with a loved one, losses of loved one, whatever the adversarial inner dialogue or story may be, you're present. You're the man in the arena. And I think there's a magical euphoria to that of like, I am in control. I can control my breath. This is very difficult. But rather than all of these other things controlling me, I'm just going to be. And I'm going to have this experience with myself where nothing else matters. Because now there's confidence and proof of concept. And on the other side, I'm going to be a better man. I'm going to be more centered, better decision making, more cool, calm, and collective, enhanced perspective. And some of those things that maybe were tickling my fancy or pissing me off before, they don't bother me as much anymore. I have a little bit more of a clear vision. And I don't know, there's something to that that's so powerful, which is why in the last few months I've become such a fanboy.
Yeah, we love it. So true. Well said. Well said.
So fun to go down this human experience with you. So let's unpack a little bit of your childhood. Like, what was it about your relationship with sports or life that led to a bunch of these injuries?
Well, right out the gates, I had some health challenges. So I had a really complicated birth. I was stuck in the birth canal. It was a 17-hour labor, and then I had to have an emergency C-section. My God bless my mother. She went through it, and then a few minutes after I was born, my lung collapsed.
Oh my gosh.
And and I was without oxygen for some period of time. And thankfully, my aunt caught it, and I was in the elevator being transported, and she was like, his face is purple. That doesn't look right. And the nurse was like, no, it's fine. He was like, no, something's wrong. And then the nurse looked closer and was like, code red, opened the elevator doors. A doctor came in and took a pen and made an incision right here in my lung to like decompress and to open it up. So I still have a little scar from that, and saved my life. But the challenge too for my parents, I can imagine this would be frightening, is that the doctors were like, we don't know the extent of the brain damage because there's likely some brain damage that occurred because without the oxygen, and you won't know for like a couple years to see how much the brain was actually damaged because of that oxygen, especially in those first minutes after birth.
Yeah, that's quick, man.
Critical. So my dad always likes to joke that I had severe damage from that, but thankfully I was able to make a full recovery, and so right out the gates it was like challenge there. And then growing up, I played sports. Sports was a great channel for me. I had a lot of aggression growing up. I had a lot of people laugh knowing me now because I'm typically very zen.
You don't have an aggressive vibe to you.
No. I had I got in fights. I got suspended from school. And then sports, high school football particularly, was the first way I was like, cool, I can channel this, and I'm going to be rewarded for hitting someone. And that's the goal.
Yes.
Put me at outside linebacker, and I had a field day, and I had so much fun.
That's cool.
And I loved it. And then through that, I had two pretty major injuries through football. ACL, LCL, MCL, meniscus. Sophomore year, had to get total knee reconstruction, which was my first lick of true adversity, overcoming that through that surgery. And then the next year I had something pretty scary called compartment syndrome. So I got this 10-inch scar right here, 12-inch scar right here. My muscle compartment had filled from a couple different hits over the course of a couple different weeks in the same spot. I had this really deep bone bruise that swelled up and became super tight, and the muscle compartment filled with blood, so it prevented any oxygen from going down. So basically I went into the ER, and they were like, we have to do surgery now. Otherwise, in a few hours, we'll have to amputate your leg because your leg's dying.
And how old are you at this point?
I was 17.
How do you even process that at 17?
Wild, right? It forced me to. It forced me just to to go inward in a deeper way, and it put me in pretty of a dark place, to be honest with you. But then I recovered from that, and then 2 years later, as a freshman in college, I had appendicitis, which is a pretty normal thing. Appendectomy is a very normal procedure. Unfortunately, there was a complication in surgery, and the doctor nicked an artery, so I was bleeding internally.
Oh my gosh.
So I was in the hospital for a week. I had to get multiple blood transfusions.
Is that a medical malpractice issue?
It is, yeah.
That's tough.
Yeah, tough. And that was what put me to what I call my rock bottom. Coming back, I had to leave the semester early from college, and I came back end of first semester freshman year, like, what is going on here? I got pneumonia that winter as well. So I'm like, I feel so broken. I remember this vivid moment of being woken up from the pneumonia, from coughing up a lung to the point where I was throwing up over by my toilet. I'm in pain, and I just saw myself in the mirror at 21 years old. This body I didn't recognize. It was like frail and inflamed and weak and just felt so strange. And that put me in a really tough point and a tough challenge where I was in a deep depression from that. I was like, how can I go through if I'm in so much pain? That's when I was taking Advil every day. And thank God, it's like when the student is ready, the teacher appears. I truly 100%. Believe that at every step of my journey that's happened. And my uncle convinced me to come to a yoga class, a sculpt yoga class with him. So I'm like, sure, there's weights. Okay, it's a workout class. And I remember at the end, we did this, we laid down in Shavasana. I was like, what was that Shavasana thing at the end? That was stillness. That felt really good. Let me go back to another class. Oh, let me take like a C2 class, like a normal flow class. Whoa, okay. My body starts to feel good. There's blood flowing. I can feel that. Okay. Now, all of a sudden, I can regain flexibility, and I'm starting to work on sitting on my knees, and I'm seeing change happen in my body. Amazing. And then I got introduced to Wim Hof method. It led me onto this path of, when I started doing yoga, it led me onto this path of like, what else is possible?
Follow the breadcrumbs.
Follow the breadcrumbs. Follow the yellow brick road, as I like to say. And so it put me on the yellow brick road, and I'm like, okay, the next step is I got deep into listening to podcasts. Podcasts were an incredible medium. I was listening to Tim Ferriss, and I was listening to Tony Robbins, and I was starting to read these self-development books, and I got put on this path of personal development to realize, okay, just like my body can change, my mind can, my whole attitude can, my whole life can. And that's what led me eventually to listening to this crazy guy named Wim Hof on a podcast and just resonating with that message so clearly that we are in control of our strength, our health, and our happiness. And that led me to the next tool, which just changed the relationship with my body forever.
That's incredible, man. I'm sorry you went through that experience.
Yeah, thank you.
Like at the time, you don't see light at the end of the tunnel, right? Especially being so young. Probably full of a ton of drive and whatnot. It's almost like, is this how it's going to be moving forward? Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yep.
And I think the one constant is change. And a huge learning lesson for you at that time is this too shall pass.
Yep.
But in the moment, you don't always know that. Maybe when you're young, there's this hope of like, I've got this rookie mindset or this childlike mindset that it will be better on the other side. As you get older, that gets slimmer and slimmer and slimmer.
Yeah. You build evidence to support that, like, you will get through this. And not only will you get through this, but maybe in time you will see how this will be for your benefit as well.
Absolutely. That's very well said.
Maybe in time I can look back at this and actually be grateful for it. If I can look back at this moment and be grateful for it, that's where true healing happens. And so for me sitting here today, I can be grateful looking back at these past moments because I've seen in context what it's led to. Right, the dots only connect looking backwards, as Steve Jobs says in that amazing commencement speech. Like, you can't connect the dots looking forward, only backwards. And hindsight's, of course, 2020. So being able to know that, like, maybe this too, and in the moment, like, you can't know for certain, and it feels horrible, and it feels like the world's ending. But what I always hold on to is, like, maybe this too can lead to something good, and maybe in time I can see that clarity. And in time, and usually happens quicker and quicker and quicker, that always is the case, and I can look back at that with gratitude, and that's where I feel like real healing occurs.
Yeah, that's so true. Let's play with a thought experiment real quick.
Great.
Are you where you are right now without that level of adversity?
No.
Isn't that interesting? So for all you guys listening, adversity can be your greatest teacher.
Yeah.
Right? Like, life isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. And whether it's God, higher power, frequency, karma, whatever you want to call it, if you can listen to those internal whispers, which I would argue that breath work, yoga, exercise, movement, human connection, kind of a lot of the primal attributes that Mark Sisson alludes to, That basically is kind of like this healthy version of a Q-tip to help you listen to that internal whisper that then allows your life compass to maybe point in the right direction in that moment.
Absolutely.
Free is the way to be. Life beats us up a bit and causes some bumps and bruises, but that doesn't mean we have to stay on the sidelines. This is why we've partnered with Kinneon Labs. Get back to doing what you love with this incredible portable device designed to get you back in the game. Kinneon is on a mission to move people from pain to possible with their top-rated red light therapy and laser solution, which tackles inflammation along with muscle and joint pain quickly and effectively. What I love is that it's portable and rechargeable, making it easy to actually incorporate into my everyday life consistently. It's small and lightweight, so you can throw it in your gym bag or work bag, or even an overnighter. Kinneon's lasers and LED combo make this cutting-edge device extremely versatile for use with general aches and pains, as well as chronic back pain, arthritis, post-surgery recovery, endometriosis, and more. This has been an amazing tool keeping my elbows and knees pain-free for pressing, pulling, and squatting in the gym. Great tools like the Move Plus give me the freedom and flexibility to continue living life on my terms without limitations. There are a lot of reasons why over 15,000 people are using this device and rating it 4.7 stars and above. Head on over to kinneon.io and use code ALLSMITH at checkout to begin your pain-free journey.
Love the Q-tip analogy. I haven't heard. I love this conversation. We're talking the same language. I'm sure you're noticing when you talk, I'm like same language, which is amazing. And Q-tip's a good one. That's a new one. But I always like to say it's like your intuition is always whispering to you. That voice of intuition, that
it's
inner
hard
knowing.
to hear sometimes.
It's hard to hear because we're always caught up in our head and we're distracted and we're numbing and we're scrolling and we're up here overstimulated and under feeling. And the voice of intuition it's a body wisdom. It's here in the gut. It's here in the body. It's that gut feeling. It's that intuition. It's in our body. And if we're too much in our head, then we can't hear it. So what breath work, the Q-tip, if you will, breath work, yoga, these practices, journaling, meditation, conversation, what it does for me is it helps lower the volume of that mental chatter that's up here. And that creates the space and the stillness and the opportunity for that whisper to seem louder. It's like that volume gets turned up and now I can hear that, I can be present with that. Okay, what am I feeling? What is this emotion? And what is the next indicated step that I need to take from here? What is that action that feels good and aligned? And let me take that step.
No, that's so well said. Something that comes to mind that I want to define for people. So we have our parasympathetic nervous system, that rest and digest. That's tough for most people in this day and age. Overly stimulated, social media culture. Some is good, more is better. Go, all gas, no brakes. If I just do the thing, I'll make more money. If I make more money, I'll be successful, right? That kind of mitigates the concept of like all the spokes in the wheel. Maybe that gives you financial fitness, some sort of success. It doesn't give you health and wellness. Yeah. It doesn't give you connectivity. And you're still kind of blind to what you said, that like inner voice. And something that I heard you and Kyle Kingsbury talk about is like getting control of your inner vehicle. And back in the day, there was so much trust around like news culture. Now, so many people are getting their news from social media. They're getting their news from places like TikTok. Fast, efficient, entertaining. And hits that dopamine hit. Like, what are your thoughts around, like, where would somebody start there? Somebody that maybe is this high performer and they're relatively resistant to start getting control of that inner vehicle because they're like, Josh, you're only doing this because you have a bias, because you have this company and like you're trying to monetize your company. Like maybe there's this like immediate pushback. And the main reason why you started the company is because you saw how much help it provided you in your journey. You're like, well, if it helped me and I'm a stubborn mofo, I'm going to diffuse this magic into the world and give it away. And also like you're solving a problem, entrepreneurship 101, like find what works and then do more of it. And so if somebody's coming into this and they're relatively resistant, they're hearing ice bath everything. The famous social media construct, which is like, can you ice bath and not video it and document it, right? That's like humorous. Where does somebody start this journey to create a level of personal buy-in and less fight and more surrender?
That's a great question. Well, the first thing I would ask is, it's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. So you have to want to change. You have to want to make a difference. And so the first thing I ask is, are you happy? Like, truthfully, are you happy? Are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Do you feel good in your body? Do you feel at peace? Do you feel healthy? Do you feel happy? And the answer is almost always no, right? Or there's like, yes, but I feel like I can improve X, Y, Z. So if we first know that there's we don't feel okay about something, then we can start that path towards okayness and those practices towards okayness. So like I had a great takeaway when I was up at our family lake house this summer, and there was some challenge I was working through in the business, and I paused to go take a walk around the block. And without a phone, I love to do those solo walks, and I'm walking around. I'm just like very present. I'm looking at the trees and the birds and the sun, the way the sun's hitting the top of the trees. And
you notice.
And I'm just like very present, and I'm just happy in that moment. And I just thought came to me, I'm like, if I'm happy, why does any of this matter? You know what I mean? Like, what does the success of the business matter? What does anything else matter? If I feel happy and I feel healthy, like, what else matters? Like, that's the goal. So to me, that is the goal. And I truly believe that all those other things happen as a byproduct. And someone who has been fortunate to experience both personal success and what I deem is successful for me, and also business success so far, it really does come as a byproduct. And I think that other people who have experienced whatever type of success that you're looking towards achieving can say the same thing, which for me, it happens as a byproduct. So the more I focus on being and feeling successful internally and feeling happy and feeling healthy, then the more the other things are more lagging inputs. They're more lagging outputs rather. They catch up to speed, and then the business does better. And the outer success follows that inner success, because that's really what matters at the end of the day. So for someone that might be reluctant in getting in, it's like, first, like, do you want to feel better? And I also always like to pose to people that there really is, I believe that there is another gear possible for all of us. Once I felt it, I was blown away. Once I felt it, when I cleaned up my diet, when I started getting into fitness, when I got deep into this mindset work, when I got deep into these practices, these holistic practices, like, oh my goodness, like, there's this level of energy that I didn't know was possible. Like, I don't have to feel an afternoon crash after I eat lunch. Like, I can wake up and feel energized. I can go throughout my day with a level of clarity and focus and not brain fog. I can laugh more. I can feel at more ease and more peace, at more surrender as things are happening around me, and be more at peace internally. This is possible. So there's another level possible. And once you can recognize that, then that opens up the door. And then I believe I always like to say to people, follow your curiosity. Like, there's something you're curious about. What is that thing that you're curious about? Because that's your intuition kind of begging you to go that direction.
Dude, it's so funny how you speak. Like, I was literally just about to bring up curiosity.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, I want to take like my podcast shovel and go a little bit deeper here to see if we can unlock like some sort of reservoir of potential with regards to going a little bit deeper with this construct, which is, you said, are you happy? I think another question to ask is, what do you want? Right? Maybe that's over here. And then from there, like you said, it's a mystery looking forward, but science looking back. So it's like, if what you want is very clear and the vision is there, like you've talked about on other podcasts, what's the goal? When you get into the cold, what is the goal?
Right.
Is it doing something hard? Is it connectivity with your friends? Is it losing
Weight
body
loss,
fat, weight loss?
Whatever.
All the things. Like, you're taking action on something that's difficult, that's going to unlock possibilities in other avenues. But I think a really cool construct here is just along the lines of getting very clear on that vision, and then creating pillars or a roadmap backwards of little checkpoints that you can check in with. And I think even before that construct is, why are you here? Right? If everything that you're doing is perfect, you're probably not here.
Yeah.
Right? Like, we talk about that in fitness. Like, you're asking for my help or my guidance or my advice because what you're doing isn't working. Or maybe it worked for a small amount of time and how you got from A to B was magical. But now you're trying to get from B to C, and maybe there's transferable principles, but the exactness no longer applies.
Totally.
And so less the ability of like holding on, and more the ability of like the minimalist perspective of letting go to create space for the next chapter. And so one of my favorite statements is, who are you becoming?
It's great.
And if you are becoming the version of you that aligns with the vision of what you want, now there's this trifold construct. The world thinks you need to have the thing to do the thing, and then you have the success. So you need to have the money or the capital in order to do the business, and then you have the success. I'm like you.
It's backwards.
I think you need to be the person that does the thing, and then you'll have the success or the opportunity to pursue success. It starts with you.
Yeah, always.
Right? Be, do, have. That's my thought process on it. When I say that, what kind of unlocks in your mind?
I love that. Be, do, have. To me, it's anything we want because we believe that we will feel better in the having of it, right? We want something because I want to hit this business metric, because if I get this, then I will be happy. That to me is conditional happiness, right? It's if this, then this. If
That's
I get
dangerous,
this,
man.
It is, and that's where most of us are wired, and understandably so. Like it makes sense. Like we're working with old hardware and software here. We're working with our caveman bodies and ancestors that are not adapted for this dopamine world that we're living in, right? As a mentor of mine always said, we're ancient beings living in a modern world. We're not designed for the stimulation life that we're in. We're designed for tribe, for culture. We're designed to have a small unit. We're designed for hard things. We're not designed to sit on the couch all day. Hardware's not designed for that. So within that, like we're conditional happiness is a key thing, and I always like to try to flip the script on that. So instead of like when I get this, if I get this, then I'll be happy. It's if I get happy, then this will come as a byproduct of that. Because think about it, if I want this thing, let's say I want to hit $100 million in revenue in my business. The reason I want that is because I feel like I will be happier as a result of that, or I will become better as a result of that, and I will feel happy. Well, guess what? I can close my eyes and I can visualize and I can feel into what will that feel like. And I can feel that now. And our subconscious doesn't know the difference in time and space. So I can feel that now. And this is a lot of Joe Dispenza's work. You can feel that now and actually rewire your being, rewire your DNA in your being and your cells, and charge your cells to feel that reality. So I can feel that, like that happiness and that culmination of hitting this $100 million in business mark, and feel how good that feels. And I can just carry that into my day and I can feel that. And guess what? I can feel happy. So I don't actually need to go get that thing if I can just feel that now. And I think that the more we can feel that, and more we can like shortcut that way to our happiness and ask ourselves, why do we want that thing? What's the intention behind why we want that thing? A question I always like to ask people is, what will that bring you? That will bring me a sense of confidence. That will bring me a sense, okay, cool. Where else in your life do you feel that sense of confidence? How can you every day practice feeling that sense of confidence? And now as you step into that thing becomes irrelevant anymore, and you're not fixated on this is the goal and anything else, nothing else matters besides hitting this goal because it's going to bring me these things. It's like, look at all these other ways where I feel that already and how I can practice feeling more of that. And guess what? The more that I do that, I've seen this time and time again, I have so much evidence to support that. The more that I make that my dominant intent, then that thing just happens to come.
Yeah. I love this, man. I love this so much. So jumping back into your injuries, how did you find the cold? And then at what point did you make the decision to go all in with your cousin to create your own product?
Total accident, man. I always like to tell people it was one big accident waiting to happen. And the first time I ever did an ice bath was outside of my high school gym after football practice. We filled up trash cans with ice. Funny enough, pretty cool. But 10, 15 years later, I went back just recently and I donated a tub to our athletic department, and we set it up in the same spot where I took the first ice bath. And so there was like a fun side-by-side picture.
That's sick.
It was a cool first full circle moment.
That's so cool.
That was the first time I did it, hated it, but you got out, they didn't teach us how to breathe or anything or why we were doing it. It was just like, you get in there, you get out, and you feel less sore.
Well, at that time, it was less about the state change.
Yes.
And less about the physiological change as far as like
nervous
mental
system,
adaptation and nervous system. And it was about
soreness.
Inflammatory response.
Exactly. Yep.
And then we saw the book Iced that was popularized everywhere about, 15 years ago. And that's when we were like, oh,
there's something else here. And then Wim Hof was another big person to bring this more mainstream. And so I got it deep into learning and podcasts, and I stumbled across Wim's podcast. And I mean, Wim is a passionate man who talks with such conviction and passion. And he's someone who's lived it. I mean, his wife had committed suicide and he was left at his wit's end, and he was able to transform his life, and he was a circus freak doing these crazy mind body things and telling everybody you can do this too. And then they started to study him, and they started to study, and they won a Nobel Prize for the research where they did the endotoxin study, and they injected him with the E. coli virus, and he fended it off. He suppressed his immune response through doing the breath work and the cold exposure. And then he trained 20 people, and the same thing happened. They literally changed science textbooks because it was the first time that they showed we actually can influence our autonomic nervous system, our immune system. We didn't think this was possible. It's autonomic. You can't influence your immune system, but actually through the breath work, you increase your adrenaline, and when your adrenaline increases, you increase your production of white blood cells, and that can help suppress secondary immune response. So fascinating stuff. I was geeking out learning this. I'm like, this is wild. And just more so than that was his passion about we can do hard things. We are strong. We are beautiful, we are capable, and we are in control of our strength, health, and happiness. Like, don't delegate that away. And I think at my point, up to that point in my life, I was delegating away my health and my strength to doctors, to other people. I never forget when a doctor told me that I should probably pick up golf to do something low impact. And I took that and I believed that, right? And I thought, okay, well then I can kiss goodbye some of the dreams I have of like running a marathon or triathlon. Maybe that's just not for me. And going to him and going to doctors to look for the answers. And the answers came in the form of prescriptions. And I didn't want to do a Percocet prescription. I just didn't want to do it. So when he said this message, it just resonated so deeply. So I went on the website. This is in 2018, 2019. And so I went on his website, and he was still very, very early on at this point.
He had just been on Tim Ferriss roughly at that point.
Exactly. And
that was how I found him.
That's how I found him. Yeah, I think I might have listened to him on the Rich Roll podcast, and then I listened to him, whatever other podcast he was on. I just kept listening. And I went on to go find a workshop because I was like, cool, let me go do a workshop to like go see what this is. Mm-hmm. And there was only 2 North America workshops, one in Colorado, one in Toronto, I think. I was like, I can't do that. And still to this day, I'm a Wim Hof Method instructor, and I'm one of like, I think there's like 50 North American instructors. There's not a lot. It's really big in Europe, and it's coming more towards North America. But so I went on, no workshop available, but I saw that he did different retreats. And then I saw there was this retreat that one of his top guys was leading in Iceland. And I'm like, ooh, Iceland. I've always wanted to go to Iceland to see the Northern Lights. Yep. Like, that's a bucket list. And I just felt within me this sense of curiosity and the sense of my intuition being like, do this. And it was really scary, but like, I just blindly signed up for it. And I just blindly signed up for it. And I went into the kitchen after I was over with my parents. It was over the holidays. This was for a March expedition. And I went into the kitchen. I'm like, hey, Mom, I'm not sure what I just did, but I think I'm going to Iceland. And she's like, what? What are you doing? I'm like, I'm doing this like breath work, cold immersion retreat. And I showed her the video of like people climbing and nothing but their shorts and going. And she was just like, this is a cult. Like, what are you doing? Like, you can't go to this. I'm like, no, this is going to be good. And she was like legitimately afraid that I was joining some sort of cult. And so I went over to Iceland and I dove in head first. And it was the first time I did deep breathing. It was the first time I did cold immersion with this mentality. And it totally changed my life. That first breathing session, I show up that first morning, I'm in the breathing session. And I'm breathing and going through a deep Wim Hof Method style breathing. It was more kind of like rebirthing style too, so it was longer rounds, and I'm breathing. Joran, the guide, he's just telling us go deeper, whatever's present, breathe into it. I'm feeling some tingle, some lightheadedness, some buzzing. I'm breathing into it, and then all of a sudden, I felt this tingle right at the site where I had my appendicitis surgery. I'm like, okay, you breathe into that. I'm breathing a little bit more. Now this tickle starts to kind of move. I'm breathing. I'm tracing the tickle. It starts to move up. It kind of moves up to my throat. It's kind of caught in my throat. And I'm like really power breathing through. And then all of a sudden, like I'm totally fine in 1 minute. And then the next moment as I'm breathing, whoosh, I just start crying my eyes out, like hysterically sobbing, like sobbing to the point where you're not making any noise. You know, you're hyperventilating, crying to the point where you're like you're just not even making any noise. You're just crying so deeply. And I just had this wave of emotional release, and I was so caught off guard because I wasn't feeling sad or like I was so not expecting it. And all of a sudden it was just this wave of release. And then from there, the tickle, I got back to the breathing, and then it moved to my knee for my knee surgery, then my quad, then my lung. And it just moved around all these different injuries and surgeries that I had. And it was like this wave of release, this emotional release. And I was left at the end of it. I was, I was drenched in sweat and tears. Like, it was this crazy experience. And I just remember holding myself at the end of that. And I had this new appreciation to my body. And I was thinking, oh my God, body, I love you. You've been through so much. Like, holy crap. You've done so much for me. You've gone through so much. And I've never stopped to be like, thank you, or I'm sorry. And you felt it all. Like, I didn't think that my body would feel, but you're under the surgery, you feel those things in the subconscious. And it was this wave of emotional release. And after that session, there was 2 things that were present for me. The first was, this guy drugged us, right? How is it possible that I laid down for an hour and just did nothing but take deep breaths, and I had this crazy out-of-body experience? Like, what is going on here? I need to learn more about this and go deeper into this. And the second was this sense of lightness. My shoulders were relaxed. My jaw was unclenched. I felt for the first time this peace and stillness throughout my entire body. I wasn't clenching. And then we go into the ice, and we learn the technique of, instead of bracing, embracing. And how that's a mirror for how we deal with stress, and all the stress that I dealt with, the injuries, work, whatever it was. I took this brace approach, and now the ice was training me to relax into it and to find strength and surrender and to embrace the stress. And so, safe to say, I mean, just even from those 2 stories, and there was a whole week of this, but from those 2 stories, it changed my life. It changed my body. It changed my being. It changed the way that I interacted with the world. It changed the way I interacted with myself, and how I processed things, and how I now all of a sudden it was like a highway was opened up, north and south, instead of just north to south of like, body, go, come on, do this, suck it up, you're in pain, I don't care, emotion, whatever, push it down under the rug. All of a sudden it was like, whoa, there's another voice here. It's like there's another person in my mind. There's another voice present, where it's my body telling me something. Hey, there's this emotion present. Hey, I'm feeling this pain in my back. Like, sit with it, be with it. Hey, move with it. Don't try to suppress it. And it opened up this kind of bilateral direction, if you will, another highway system that has stuck with me, and it's something that I fostered. So
it's a collaboration.
It's a collaboration.
Right? The body and the mind are now synergistic,
yes,
as opposed to like either or comparative of me versus you. Now we're one, which probably inches you closer to a higher frequency of flow state in this modern day. And how were you so open to it, Josh? Like, were you hit your head against the wall so much with different forms, different treatments, that you're just like, okay, like, what I'm doing isn't working. I need something so disruptive. Like, I'm thinking about freeze state. Yeah. Like, based on all those different adversarial moments for you, it's very easy to be like, hey, I'm going to retreat. I'm just going to like stay in bed for a little while. I'm going to watch stuff. I'm going to numb it with drugs, alcohol, Netflix, dopamine, whatever. Yep. How were you able to create an actionable for yourself that wasn't like outside your back door? Yeah. This is like a big commitment level. How did you get to that spot? I had no choice. I had no choice. I had to do something. I was at that point where like all I was doing was numbing and numbing with weed, numbing with porn, numbing with alcohol, numbing with distraction, with Netflix, with Advil and Percocet. Even I was numbing, and I just knew that like there has to be another way. And then it happens in steps though, because like that seems like a big jump to be like, okay, cool, like I'm in a bad place, like I'm gonna go to Iceland and do a retreat, right? It's more sequential, and that's why I always like to say, we were talking about it, follow the breadcrumbs, follow the yellow brick road. It's like, what's the framework that's changed my life that I operate on is, what is the next indicated step to take? You don't need to see the full picture. You just got to see the next step in front of you. Okay, I know right now the next step is to take this step because that's all I can see. So I'm going to take that step. And now I take this step. Now there's a whole new viewpoint. And now I can see where to place my next step. And all of a sudden you look back and you've climbed a mountain. But so in that moment, it's like, okay, the first step for me was yoga. Like, okay, my uncle's telling me to go to this class. Whoa, yoga. That was something interesting there. I liked what happened at the end. I felt for a brief moment no pain in my body. So like, let me take the next indicated step, which let me go do another class. Okay, cool. Now let me try to take this other class because the instructor tells me to do this other class and she thinks I'll like that. So let me take that class. Okay, cool. Wow, there's a yoga teacher training and the instructor believes in me and thinks this will be good for me. So like, let me sign up for a yoga teacher training. That's how I became a yoga instructor. So it's like, you take these micro steps, but the important thing, and the universe rewards action. God wants you to take that action. It's a dance. God takes a step, you take a step.
step. God takes a step, you take a step. And so as long as you're taking that next indicated step, the path unfolds. And this has been true for my entire journey. And what's led me to be in this business in the first place was like, just kept taking those steps. And we'll get into that story in a minute. But to get to Iceland, it was very clear of like, I listened to this podcast. I'm interested. Let me go online to Wim Hof's website. Next indicated step. Okay, there's no workshops, but there's a free, 1 week or 2 week course that I can do. Let me take that. Okay, cool. There's a $99 4-week course on cold showers and understanding this. So like, let me sign up for that because I like the other one. Okay, cool. No workshops, but there's a retreat. That was a big step, but it was still a step that I felt inspired to take because I'd taken those micro steps up to it. And then I take that big step. So you never know when that like payoff step is going to happen. Like we're always 1 or 2 steps away from that. And so as long as there's movement and motion, action beats anxiety every single day of the week. As long as you're taking that action, next indicated step, what's my next step? Then the path will take care of itself. And we can't see the full picture. And if we try to see the full picture, it might even limit us. So I don't like to focus too much on the bigger picture because that oftentimes can be limiting. I never thought that I'd be doing an ice bath company. If I was set on doing a coaching company or something else that I was working on at the time, like I would have missed this. So it's like, let me just focus on the next indicated step and be open to the possibilities of what's to come.
I love that, man. It's so easy to look so far ahead, but narrowing the focus and just being in that present moment is seemingly more simple. Mm-hmm. But is mentally and emotionally significantly harder. Yep. The Navy SEAL mindset, just make it to your next meal. But you're like, well, I want my trident. I want the brown shirt. I want to do the thing. Like we're such an outcome-oriented world, but it's not really about what you do. It's who you become in the pursuit of what you're trying to do. And that's something that stands out to me. Before we jump into how you and your cousin created Edge Theory Labs, there's something that's coming up for me, and that's everyone's jealous of what you've got, but nobody's jealous of how you got there.
That's a great line.
Right? And I want to say it again. Everyone's jealous of what you've got, but very few people are jealous of how you got there. It's easy to talk about the benefits of cold plunge therapy. It's hard to do it consistently. It's easy to talk about the benefits of the breath work and, oh yeah, I just signed up for this course, but there was an internal willingness for you to be enrolled in the process, participate, and take action.
It takes work.
It does. And that's something that's not always painted on the podcast or on the online bio.
Totally.
It's not always shown on the Forbes 30 under 30.
Totally.
Sometimes it's the most important part of the story, though.
It is the story. It is the story.
For sure. So when I say that, like, and you're self-reflecting right now of like, okay, you are where you are right now.
Right.
You've come so far. Yeah. You have so far that you want to go, but like you're here now. Less pain, a team, more pressure, more publicity, more competition, but your energy is just in the present moment. What does that bring up for you when you self-reflect now on like, okay, like I did the work to learn and educate myself. It got me out of pain. We were in a funk, or we were in just a tough rock bottom season less than a decade ago. Like, how do you unlock all of these doors to then get to where you're at now?
That's a great question. For me, I view it as an iterative process. So it's not like, okay, I was in pain, now I'm out of pain. It's I was in pain and I developed a skill set and a practice to learn how I can work with pain and get out of pain. Because like in 2 weeks ago, I was getting walked down off the dock by my 2 cousins because my back was so locked up. I was in debilitating pain and I couldn't even sit up on my own. And I was going to the fear of like, if I don't feel better in the morning, I got to go to the hospital and get painkillers because this is not good.
And how am I going to run a company? How am I going to be a leader? Now people are going to be judging me.
Exactly.
The whole thing.
Onslaught. And I had a flight booked that next week to go to Italy for a friend's wedding. So I'm like, how am I going to go travel? How am I going to go on an international flight and travel and walk around Europe? Like, I'm going to have to cancel that trip. And like, crap, here I am again. And so I think that it's about building that skill set so that when that challenge does happen again, which is very real, and I'm still working through it, I'm doing my PT, but I know what I need to do now. And I knew as I laid there and I felt the fear start to take hold of my body and I started thinking worst case scenario, I decided I have the ability to shut this down. I have the ability. I know I have a deep connection with my body. Hey, body, let me get in tune with you. Let me do some breath work. Let me calm the nerves a bit. I know how to influence my body, my state of being. Let me get into my parasympathetic because I'm really charged up right now. Let me downshift. Let me regulate. I have these tools at my disposal, so let me use those. And like, I'm so grateful for that experience because like, I feel great now. Like I went to Europe, had a great time. Like I'm still doing some PT now, but like I'm fully active. I feel great. I'm not limited at all. And it's about building that skill set so that when the next challenge does happen, you get stronger and better at adapting. So it's not like I was in pain, now I'm out of pain. There was a challenging moment, now we're out of it. It's like you're building experience, you're building capacity to handle the next one because the next one's always bigger. The next one's always more challenging. They build. And you know, with one of the lines I love is like, you know, God doesn't give you anything that you're not capable of handling. And he pushes you to the edge. And then like the challenges that I'm facing right now in the business, there's no way I could have faced that a year ago. I would have crumbled. The back pain that I felt now, there's no way I could have faced that 5 years ago. I would have crumbled. But you build this capacity, you build this responsibility or ability to respond to the circumstances, and that gets stronger. So it's a muscle. So the way that I see it is it's building this muscle of self-reliance, of self-regulation, of adaptability, of responsibility, and that muscle gets stronger. And like we know, what does it take to build muscle? It takes tearing down the muscle fibers. It takes the burn. It takes the failure in the sets. It takes that to be able to build the muscle. It's no different when it comes to the mental muscle that we're building or the spiritual muscle that we're building. It takes those moments. And so when you're in those moments, it's like, I thank God for all of the moments in the past that have led me to be able to show up to this moment and to be able to handle it. So I view it more as an iterative process because it doesn't stop. It never stops.
Just one stair at a time, man.
That's it.
Just the willingness to put one foot in front of the other. Cold exposure is about more than just recovery. It's about building resilience, like we just alluded to. In an ice bath, you're training your mind to remain calm under pressure, which translates into every other arena of life. When I say that, and you self-reflect now on the peaks and the valleys of creating Edge Theory Labs, how did this start? What was the problem that you were trying to solve? And how have you kept the momentum?
Yeah. Well, I was trying to solve a problem that you experienced as well, which was going down, spending $75 on ice every couple of days to do an ice bath. After I got back from that Wim Hof method retreat, doing the ice baths daily were just essential for me because I felt so much better after. I was able to feel more at peace in my body, and I was able to tap back into that place, present with my body, present with my mind. And that was really important for me to get back to that place every day. And I wanted to. It felt great to do. I was living in LA at the time with a couple of roommates. And I would just literally go raid the 7-Eleven and the liquor store down by our block, and I would bring it back and put it in my bathtub, and I would just fill it in my bathtub and take, it couldn't fit fully in the bathtub, but it would be enough to do the trick. And then after our water bill skyrocketed that next month,
I've been there too, dude.
And especially in California too, there's droughts. It's not great. You're wasting all the plastic, all the water. And I'm like, okay. And then spending a lot. I'm spending over $100 a week on ice.
Plus in the apartment situation, you're carrying the ice, this door, that
door.
It's
Exactly.
leaking everywhere. It's a pain in the ass.
Exactly. So what I did was I petitioned my roommates on buying a chest freezer to put on our very small balcony so we could like hack a chest freezer. And they shot me down. Thankfully, they shot me down. So anyway, fast forward a couple months later, I just kept doing the ice. I started doing it less, but then I was just moving to San Diego, and this is just as COVID was really going into full swing. So it was like, it was that springtime. I remember I left LA on the day that there were the big riots in LA, and all Santa Monica was like burning down. It was a very ominous day, and couldn't be outside without a mask on. You couldn't breathe, and I was like, I need to get back to San Diego where at least like I can feel like I can breathe. And I had family down here, so I decided to pack up, move back to San Diego. And as I got back to San Diego, I reconnected with my cousin, Rob, and him and I had been really connected closely on doing triathlons together. So we got the bug, and we both did a bunch of triathlons, half Ironmans, ended up doing a full Ironman just this past fall together.
Congratulations,
Thank
man.
you.
That's badass.
Yeah, super badass, especially considering the context of the story that I've laid out of thinking, how would it be even remotely possible to do this crazy race, this, this 2.5 mile swim, 112-mile bike ride, and marathon? Like, how is that possible? But I was able to do it.
Yeah,
And
let's just pause for a moment to soak that in.
yeah.
The swim in and of itself is probably the most brutal part.
Swim is brutal, but it's also the shortest part. You're in there for an hour and a half and then you're out. So the swim's actually the easiest part because it's the shortest and you can train up for it. The bike is the bike and the run, but really the bike is you're on the bike for 6 to 8 hours. Like I was on the bike for
tough.
8 hours because we had a gnarly headwind in Arizona. So I'm on 8 hours on a bike. And then it's like you get off, the sun's getting ready to set, and you're like, okay, time to run a marathon now.
Yeah.
After my leg is cramping as I'm flipping it over my bike. I'm like,
what does fueling look like for something like that?
You're doing constant fueling throughout the day and leading up to it, of course, too. But throughout the day, you're, you have like a mix of carbs and electrolytes that you put in your bottles. And so every hour you're drinking a full bottle that has a certain mix of carbs and electrolytes to keep you fueling. And you can kind of dial the mix to feel good for you. And then you're also bringing in some solid food. So like bananas, pretzels, basically whatever you can eat because you don't really have a whole lot of appetite, but whatever you can get down, you want to get down. And then some bites of a PB&J sandwich at the aid station when you can. So like you're just trying to fuel as much as you can, but sticking with the hydration is the most important part.
Yeah,
so
you don't want to cramp. That's nightmare.
Exactly.
Once you get there, there's no going back.
Yeah, very hard. You can take some salt pills, but very hard to recover from that cramp.
How's the digestion factor?
Tough.
Like I feel like
your GI is pretty shot.
Yeah, I've done like a marathon, a couple half marathons, and like even that, man, just constant movement. Like your body's trying to metabolize all kinds of things.
Yeah,
it's really
and then
brutal.
And then you're putting in, you're putting in a bunch of other stuff. I can never do the gels or the goo. A lot of guys do that, and I was planning on doing some of those like energy bricks, but the morning of, like as I got on my bike, I just had like this adverse reaction to any of those. I'm just like, no, stay natural, stay banana. So I probably had like 12 bananas throughout the day.
Nice.
So that's what fueling's like for there. So
what are your thoughts on like ketones?
I like ketones. I've experimented with a ketogenic diet as well when I was living in LA, big into bulletproof coffee and the bulletproof lifestyle from Dave Asprey. So I liked it. I love it. I do intermittent fasting mostly. I like a high fat diet. And I know people do take some of the ketone supplements too, specifically for some of the endurance racing as well. One of my friends who's a badass triathlete who's like, he like wins races, another level.
I literally like wasn't training and my buddy was running a half marathon 2 weeks ago. And I was like, yeah, I'm in. And like, I was relatively fine until like mile 10.
Okay.
And then I was like starting to hurt. And fortunately, like in my fanny pack, I had some ketone IQ and I was like, dude.
Took it? Yeah. Make a difference?
Like, dude, it's just little quick fuel that doesn't upset my stomach.
Good.
And so like even getting goos, gels, or some of those things, like it's just tough to metabolize in that moment. And unless you visited, right? Like failing to plan is planning to fail. I didn't plan for that.
Yeah.
I just went out with a buddy and was like, you know what? Let me trust my lifetime reps. Let's go figure this out and let's do a half marathon in roughly 2 hours.
Lifetime reps.
And I mean, so much ego there too. I was just like, I can do this.
Yeah.
And mile 10, it's like
boom,
boom, boom.
So,
yeah, man, I like getting the peek behind the curtain on some of the like actual experience of Ironman. Like it's not just about the movement.
No.
The fueling, the planning, the support, the psychology, like all those things.
The little funny things too of like you plan your different transition bags and you have like a halfway bag on the bike that you get to access and the run as well. So you can pack. So that's why I packed like a PB&J sandwich, a Snicker bar, like anything that could be appetizing. You want to try to pack so that you can just eat some, and it's nice to be able to like bite into a sandwich after 8 hours of movement to liquid. Exactly. So to be able to bite into something feels good, and then you have to plan strategically as well of like, okay, for the run I had to pack my headlamp because I knew it was going to be dark by that time, so I had to make sure my head. So there's like a lot of logistics around the planning, and this bag goes here and this bag goes here. Here's my nutrition. So yeah, there's a lot. That
and chafing, sweat management, changing of socks, like blister control.
Totally. Yeah.
Like there's all the things.
Absolutely. So I think we got down this tangent from Rob. So my cousin Rob and I got deep into this together. And so when I got back to San Diego after leaving LA, he's the handyman. There's all these things we call it. That's a Rob job. Changing the light bulb, doing any of the fixes around the house. That's a Rob job. Call Rob for it. I'm not a handyman whatsoever.
Me neither. Let's just bump on that one.
I'm a call up my cousin Rob kind of guy. So I finally moved back to San Diego, and I had a space in my in the place I moved into in my garage to put a chest freezer. And I wanted to buy a cold tub, but this was even before Plunge launched, and so there was nothing on the market besides like I think Renew was around, some of these other Blue Cube, maybe like big $20,000 fixed wall tubs. I'm like, I can't do that, even if I wanted to. And so,
I mean, it's a down payment on a house for some people,
right? Not in Southern California anymore, but for most people. So I hit up my cousin Rob, and I'm like, okay, well, chest freezer is the next best option. That's what people are doing. You buy a chest freezer, you caulk the insides, you rig it up, and you got cold water. So that was what I was going to do. And I joined a Facebook group that had the instructions.
We were probably on the same group.
Probably.
All the Flex Seal.
Yep. And I joined the Facebook group, and there was like 15,000 people in the Facebook group. And it was striking to me because I'm like, how is there not a better way to do, like there's 50, like I'm not the only one. I'm sure a good percentage of this group would rather pay for something that was more affordable, not 20,000, maybe it was $5,000. Like I could stretch for 5,000 and make payments, make it happen. But 20,000 is way out of my range. I think there's a market here that's probably underserved right now. And as I started seeing more of the cold water immersion come more mainstream, you're starting to seep into pop culture. Joe Rogan's starting to talk about it. You're starting to see it pop up into things like The Bachelor and on mainstream media started to talk about it. I'm like, I think that this wave is coming. This feels like this wave is really coming here, and there's going to be an opportunity to serve an underserved part of the market here. So anyway, I just called my cousin Rob and said, hey, can you help me build a chest freezer? And he's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, I want to do cold water in there. He was so confused. He thought I wanted to just shut the lid on it and have the air be cold. I'm like, no, Rob, you fill it with cold water. And he's like, oh, I get it, but I think we can do something better. So we did a cousin project, like a DIY kind of COVID cousin project, where in our garage we built, we got above ground pool parts. We got this aquarium chiller, and then we got a filter housing from a pool supply store, and we got a water pump, and we just kind of rigged this thing together into a Rubbermaid tub and drilled the holes in to connect the hoses, and we built a DIY tub, called it the Frankenstein. And
that's badass.
And it works, and it was great, and we're like, this is cool. And it was all in for the DIY was $2,000 or $1,200 to $2,000 the first one. We're like, this is amazing. And then it broke, and we're like, okay, well, let's make it better. Let's switch out this part with this part. Okay, let's maybe switch this out with this. And then we started to think about it more through the lens of I think there's an opportunity here, and based on the pricing that we're seeing, I think we can bring something to market that is more affordable and also more practical. Was a big thing, because I was just moving to another apartment that had an apartment balcony. I didn't have a garage anymore. So I'm like, I want to be able to have something I can put on my balcony. I want to be able to have something that I can take with me and easily move when I move, and not be this whole thing that I need movers to move, and this is a liability. And something that I could easily set up or take down. If we're going to set up at an Airbnb before a race, we can take it with us. So then we had in mind, Plunge had just launched, and they had their acrylic tub, and they were still they were starting to grow a little bit, but they hadn't really taken off yet. And they were selling it for about $5,000. And so we thought, okay, well, they're proving out this market for $5,000 is here. So now if we can come in at a similar price point with a more powerful unit, so theirs was a 1/4 horsepower, we want to do 1 horsepower, so it can be stronger, that has hot tub mode, and if we can make this whole unit portable in a way that's more practical to move around, then that to me feels like there's enough value proposition at the same price where we can capture some of the market.
What unlocked the mindset for the paddleboard technology?
Literally in our garage, in the garage, I had one of those inflatable stand-up paddleboards. You've seen those stand-up paddleboards?
I have one from Costco.
Yeah, great, exactly, same. And so we were brainstorming different ways to make this portable. One of the concepts we were looking at early on and we were prototyping out was they have these foldable coolers that fold down into flat. They're these foam panels kind of thing. So we were looking at that, maybe you can have these foam panels that lift up, and then you have this kind of inner liner bag that can hold it. So we did a prototype with that. It was a little janky, didn't quite work. And then we looked at, they have these portable hot tubs that have foam panels that kind of, you tie a rope around and tighten up, and it kind of takes up form. We looked at that, and that wasn't quite it. And we're literally in our garage, and I'm like, what about a paddleboard? Because I'm looking at that paddleboard, I'm like, what if we did inflatable, but that wasn't we don't want to do inflatable because inflatable is cheap and it's and it can break and puncture and it's janky. It's inflatable doesn't feel premium, and that wouldn't last long. But what if we could, those stand-up paddleboards are rock solid. What if we could just make that one round and fill it with water? And so we reached out to a paddleboard manufacturer and got a sample and had them worked with them to get a sample. The first tub was just gross. It was horrible, and it leaked, and it was bad. But then we made another sample and went to another manufacturer, made another sample, and we're like, oh, I think we can do it. We got the right dimensions.
What was that process like to even know who to ask? And then very similarly to how you teach people how to treat you, how you teach ChatGPT.
Yeah.
How did you teach the manufacturer? Because at that point, you're describing cold therapy, and they're like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah.
How did you really confine the appropriate language to articulate the metaphor and the imagery for them to come back with an optimal prototype? Was there a lot of back and forth and janky setups?
The Trident family taught me something really important this last year.
that we are all a bundle of stories, both good, bad, and everything in between. All of their cold brews remind their customers that they are part of something bigger than themselves. I start my day with the Sweet Cream Cold Brew as I am prepping my mind and body for fitness, service, coaching, and podcasting. With various locations in San Diego, they offer over 14 nitro cold brews and a variety of specialty drinks. You can find the perfect brew and pair it with one of their treats from the Keto Bakery. You can check them out over at tridentcoffee.com and use code ALLSMITH to take your coffee experience to the next level.
A year of back and forth janky setups, and then another year to dial in before we were ready to like hit go on production. So it was a 2-year process.
And are both of you working supplemental jobs at this point that it's helping fund this?
So yes, exactly. So I was still working full time. Rob was doing some consulting. He had left his job and was doing consulting, so he had a little bit more time. And really at this point, it was like he was really involved in the back and forth. This was his lane, product and development, manufacturing, supply chain. So he was like really dialed in that, and he did a great job with that. And I said to him too early on, I was like, "Hey man, like if you can build this, I can sell this. If you build it, I will sell it. Like, I know that, like, I feel this market's coming. Like, the time is now. This stacks up against these products. Like, there's the right market. Like, I know we can sell this and at least maybe have a nice side hustle that we do."
I love that. The field of dreams analogy.
Totally.
If you build it, they will come.
If you build it, I will sell it. And he did. He built it and I sold it. And so he was working back and forth with those manufacturers, and he had some experience in supply chain and operations. So he knew like the right questions to ask. He had good communication skills and being able to lay out stuff. And we were working with China too, which is a whole wild west. And so he learned very quickly how to make that happen. And so it was back and forth. And so like 2 years later, we finally had the product where we're like, okay, with the right manufacturing lined up for both the tub and the chiller and all the right things figured out. So what we did that was unique was we were the first company to launch with this all-in-one portable concept. So the first one's with the portable tub connected to an all-in-one chiller. And the all-in-one chiller was really unique because the chillers were two separate things. So you had a chiller and then you had to have like a filter and water pump. So you had like 4 or 5 hoses going back and forth, like 2 different outlets you need to plug into. And I'm like, we can't do this. Like, we need to go simple. There needs to be this. We need to make this Joshua proof. There needs to be one plug. You plug it in regular electric, and you need to have 2 hoses. One goes in, one goes out, and everything else is contained within the box. So you don't have to do anything else. So that was the vision that we had. And we worked with the manufacturer to develop a product to our specifications. And we were the first ones to come to market with it, which was really exciting. Like, we actually pioneered something in this space that's now very commonplace. And I tell Rob that all the time. I'm like, dude, you single-handedly like disrupted this entire cold plunge industry.
Oh yeah.
Like, wild.
Yeah.
And so
like you said, simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
That's it.
Too many options.
Nobody
makes a choice.
That's it.
So if it's one choice,
plug and play.
Now you're winning.
No tools required. I was like, I don't want to have to use a screwdriver because I want to be able to set this thing up. I want it to be simple enough where I can set it up and I can use it, and therefore I can sell it as very easy to use to other people. So like, even down to the way you connect the hoses to the tub and the chiller, it's all wing nut, hand tighten, no screws, no screwdriver. You don't need a wrench. You don't need anything to set the thing up or use it or to maintain it. So we did really hit that goal of making it simple.
That's so cool.
So yeah, we were working separate. We were working jobs. I was working full time, and then even through our launch. So we launched April of 2022. We officially came to market, and I was still working a full time job. And then we had our goal of selling 50 units by the end of the year. That was our big goal because that was the inventory that we got. So we're like, if we sell 50 units by the end of the year, we'll be stoked. We ended up selling 50 units that next month, and we're like,
oh my gosh,
oh shit, like, we need to order more and we need to keep going, and like, there's something here. So
let me bookmark you right there.
Yeah, sure.
So you have this product development.
Yep.
You're solving a personal problem. You realize the market value, especially being part of that Facebook group. You're seeing the problems, not just with the chiller, but the cleanliness of the water, temperature control, the form-fitting shape of the actual tub itself. At what point were you able then to realize this is bigger than just product development? And it's like, oh, there's liability insurance. What if we have issues with the manufacturer? What's shipping going to look like? How are we going to create payment processing? What is the tax situation? When do I create the LLC or the S Corp? when do we build out a team? Like, how did you then do the behind the scenes entrepreneurial admin side of things that nobody wants to do?
I'm very, very grateful that I had an amazing business partner in Rob, because him and I couldn't be more polar opposites. The stuff that he does, I don't want to touch, not my skill set, makes me want to throw up. The stuff that I do, like him sitting here right now with the lights and the podcast, like he would be having a panic attack. So he doesn't like to do any of the stuff that I do. So it works really well. So from a business breakdown standpoint, he does all product, finance, admin, ops. I do all marketing, sales, business development, branding.
Wow.
And it's like total yin
that
to
right
yang.
there is yin to yang for
It's
sure.
total yin
lightness
to yang.
with darkness.
Exactly. And even more so than just like yin to yang, it's like I want no part of what he's doing and he wants no part of what I'm doing. And so I always like to say too, especially because people like to ask like your cousins, how did it was like going into business with your cousin? And I always say that we were first compatible co-founders and then we happened to be cousins and family. And that's a magical scenario.
It's a big difference.
It's a big difference. Not like, oh, I'm going to go into business with my cousin and we'll figure it out. It was like, I'm going to go in business with this guy who is a compatible co-founder and we happen to be cousins, which is, in my opinion, the best case scenario, because you have a deep sense of trust there, both on the operational level that like he doesn't second guess me and what I'm doing. I don't second guess him and what he's doing. We trust each other with that autonomy in our different lanes. And then we have this underlying like love and support. And like there's 0.0 fear of like him screwing me over or me screwing him over, a lot of stuff that a lot of co-founders deal with. So that's best case scenario in my mind.
For sure. What hiccups have you guys faced, like at least early on with launch?
I would say realizing very quickly that this is a generation one hardware product and it was going to require a lot of customer support and like people asking questions about like, how do what happens if my water flows down, or I'm having an issue with my chiller, or can you help me get it back up and running? So we weren't really anticipating that whole rush that happened, especially early on. Like every production run, we're constantly tweaking and making it better and refining it. So the chiller that we have now is very different from the one a couple years ago, and in a good way, and more reliable, more stable way. And that's common for hardware. I mean, like I think the first 1,000 laptops that Dell made, they had to recall all of them, like something crazy. It might even be more. But they had a whole, like the first Dell laptop completely had to be recalled. So that's happens in hardware. So I think that was kind of initially like working with our manufacturer to dial stuff in. I'll never forget too, one of the, and then delays in manufacturing. So we were selling on a back order all the way through our first year and a half of the business. We were selling on an 8, sometimes 10-week back order because we couldn't make it fast enough. As our sales kept increasing, we kept placing bigger orders, but then those orders weren't big enough. So we had to just keep funneling back up, which was good because it provided us the capital to basically bootstrap our business to where we didn't need to go out and get a whole ton of outside investors to fund the business, because our customers were paying with their credit card $5,000, and then they were willing to be patient and wait 8 weeks. So we could then take that as working capital and use that to go buy more inventory. So they were essentially funding their purchase orders. They were funding their own manufacturing, which is uncommon.
Which is uncommon, but also really freaking smart.
Yeah.
Like, did you guys end up having to host or hold inventory over here at that point?
No, we couldn't. We tried to. We wanted to have our hands on inventory, but we couldn't. It would come in and it would leave the door right away. It would come in, leave the door. We'd be right on the next back order. So it wasn't
until... What was the shipping process like there?
So we did some final assembly here actually on the tubs initially, and the chillers came finalized from our manufacturing partner in Asia, and so it would come over. We had a third-party logistics warehouse. It would get into the 3PL, and then it would ship out through the 3PL through FedEx to the different customers' homes, and it wasn't until October of 2023 that we finally got into an in-stock position. And throughout all of 2023, nobody, Plunge wasn't, I mean, none of the cold tub companies could keep an inventory position. Everyone was on back order because the demand was just spiking. Yeah. Like nobody could, everybody wanted one and nobody could get their hands on one, it was a great time. Business was booming. Now it's changed a lot in 2024 as everybody's supply chain's been able to keep up with it. There's more entrance into the market. Now there's a lot more options and everybody's in inventory. And so it changes things. It kind of drives the price. There's kind of like this race to the bottom for pricing. It becomes more of a buyer's market, where in 2022 and 2023, it was a seller's market. Like, you could command a more premium price point and customers had to wait. There was no other option. Now it's kind of transitioned to seller's market, which has provided challenges that we're working through. And I think every tub company is working through as well. So that was from the fulfillment standpoint of being able to do that, and finally getting into an inventory position was like a big win. So now we could fulfill. I remember how massive it was to be like, we're shipping from stock, like 1 to 2 business days. We're shipping from stock. This is huge.
Yeah.
Which was exciting.
Those micro wins, man.
Yeah, for sure.
And I also think the education and the communication on podcasts, on social media, and in various avenues is a lot higher now. In the sense of back then it was like, why would I spend all that money? I can just, get this little cold thing from Home Depot, or I'll just do cold showers. That's a lot easier. It's not the same.
No.
It's not the same experience. It's not the same sensations.
Right.
And so you've overcome that element now.
Yes, true.
How did you guys unlock the branding and whatnot? And I'm a huge fan of that. Like one of my favorite lines is just seeking edges, right? And being disruptive. Two things that you guys align with your brand identity. As you're developing this beautiful product, you're solving different problems within the market. You're figuring out production, inventory, price point, troubleshooting, customer support. But then there's a whole branding side of things. There's a brand book. There's trademarking. There's fonts. There's the build out of a team. How did that come to be?
So naturally and in such a fun way. It felt like all these different people from my past just kind of came together in this amazing way that fueled our team, that became our team and became the foundation of what we were doing. An old connection was the one who did the logo package for us to build the Edge logo and the brand identity. And then Kat Davis, who, our director of marketing, I knew her way back when she was working in Lululemon, like right out of college in LA. And that's how we became friends. And she was doing some like kind of freelance marketing consulting after she left Beekeepers Naturals. And so we hired her before leading up to our launch so she could help like build out the website and the brand. And then a friend that I used to work with helped us build out the Shopify pages. So it was just kind of like this class project with all my friends.
Yeah.
And then
entourage, baby.
Totally. And one of my best friend Chad became our head of sales. Like once we started selling and like I couldn't keep up with the volume of like inbound sales calls and inquiries to the website. I needed some help, and he was just right there. He was just like, hey man, like you don't need to pay me anything. Like I'm here if you need. I have some time outside of my job. Like I'll just do commission only. Like let me help you, train me up on the product so that I can sell it if you want me to sell it. I'm like, great, let me train you up. We'll start very small. We did that, and we just kept taking the steps, and he's been our head of sales. So it was just like this kind of amalgamation of all these different people. A guy who I was friends with as well happened to like come next door to the place where we were working, and we reconnected, and he ended up becoming our copywriter. So it was just like all these things just came together, and there was this kind of sense of magic that was like all these people and circumstances coming together. It was like something special is brewing here. So there really was a specialness to it, and especially in early stage startups. It's so much about the network. It's so much about the people that you have, the people that can believe in the vision that you're working towards and get excited about the product that you're bringing. Like that's how you're going to be able to attract people. And you're not going to just like put out a job posting and hire someone in an early stage startup. It's going to come through like a friend or a friend of a friend or someone who hears of you or someone from the past. So that's how that started to come. And I got to credit Kat Davis to, really being at the forefront of building this brand that is Edge Theory Labs. I mean, she and I really aligned early on from this vision of what it meant to build a brand that was about finding your edge and seeking these edges and greatness happening at the edge of your comfort zone and creating this lifestyle movement around what the cold represents. And I let her run with it. And I just gave full trust. I let her run with it, develop our ambassador program, our influencer program, working with the athletes, creating the deliverables. Our videographer was a guy I used to work with at my last job, came on board as our videographer and capturing us doing these setups for these, these celebrities and A-listers and athletes. And it just started kind of spreading from there. And we just leveraged organic. We had an uncommon start with organic marketing, kind of at the convergence of pop culture and just like ice baths taking off. Like we just went, the Instagram just took us. So we did our first $3 million in sales without spending $1 on paid ads.
Wow.
Which is just so rare. That doesn't happen. So, and then once we started doing paid ads, we started growing and scaling even more as we were getting ridiculous cost per acquisition and 15 times return on ad spend, unheard of stuff, just because it was kind of like the right product at the right place at the right time. So things were just converging and happening. But building that brand and that movement was always something like that mattered way more to me than just selling a product.
Yeah.
That's just who I am and what this product represented. It represented my story. It represented finding these edges, overcoming these things, and building a deeper relationship with my body, giving myself and others tools to connect more deeply with themselves. So that was what it always was about. So then it became easy to be like, this is what we're about. Like, let's make the focus on this. And let's also make the focus as we start to build our team on building a place that we actually want our employees to come into work. We want to build an office space that is a fun place that people want to come into, that has a sauna, that has a cold tub, that has workout equipment, that has Normatec boots. Like how can we re-envision and do things differently? How can we re-envision what it means to work in real life in an office? At this time, people are still getting out of their office leases. Everybody was going work remote. And I'm like, I want to bring people in real life. I want to bring people back IRL into an office and to collaborate together. So how do we make a place that we actually want people to come into?
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You didn't necessarily make it this aggressive, like, dictatorship or mandate. You attracted.
Yes.
You didn't chase. You basically said, hey, we want to connect. We want to synergize. We want to involve ourselves in a beautiful experience. And if you chase a hummingbird, it flies away. But if you just bloom and you work on you, going back to where we started our conversation today, the hummingbird comes to you.
Beautiful. And
you said this, our goal at Edge Theory Labs is to democratize the benefits of cold therapy. We want to make it easy for anyone, anywhere, to tap into the power of the cold. And what I think about that, with that statement, is people don't just buy a product. Maybe they did early on because it was this beautiful romanticization around cold therapy, and it was popular and it was talked about anywhere and everywhere. But people buy people. And I think starting off, you had your founder story, and then that founder story has since evolved into the conversion story of like, yeah, it started with me and solving my pain. But pain is this universal concept that everybody goes through. We're either in adversity, just left it, or we're approaching it. And here's a tool and experience and a collective of people that can align with you to guide you towards your peak expression. And so when I think about Edge Theory Labs, I'm thinking investing in people, less about the product. The product is a byproduct that creates experiences like the Sunrise Social Club. Right. And like, so you guys are so much more than just here's a tool. It's like this tool is actually going to unlock and connect you to a community. That community is going to like 10x the speed of your life. It's almost like playing Mario Kart and you hit the little thing and all of a sudden
speed
you're
ramp.
Sped up. When I describe some of those things, just being on the outside looking in, like the frequency that I'm feeling is that it's lighting your heart on fire a little bit because you're like, that was the plan.
Yes.
And I don't know, there's something to that that's just like fucking awesome, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate that.
Like there's so much there to unpack a little bit. When it comes to the cold, there's more than just here's the product. How did you then transition to experiences, education, like enhancing the customer experience?
Yeah. It was always about that. From the beginning, we just were able to now start to focus more time, energy, and resources onto that with things like building the Edge app, so we could provide guided cold immersions for people, regardless if they had an Edge tub or not, for $10 a month, guided cold showers, community events, so that we could fund doing things like the Sunrise Social Club and doing community events where I would lead breath work and cold immersion, and we would bring people together. So that's how I got into this, and that's who I am. And once we had some foundation built with selling the tub, it allowed us to fuel some of these other endeavors and aspects of the business that were always there and were always unique to what I was doing, what I wanted to do. Leading retreats, I'd always done that, and I wanted to continue to do that. Now we could fund doing our Edge retreat in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which was epic. We're gonna do another retreat this year.
Great location.
Yeah, right.
Really good location.
So it was always there. It just became like now we can fully express this in another level, and it's still like the vision for what that looks like. Fully express at the next level is even grander, but it's like we can start to be able to share this more.
You're a high-performing male. You're full of piss and vinegar. You've got ambition.
Yep.
You've got drive. What started as getting out of the external and going into the internal is this artistic blend between the masculine and the feminine.
Yes.
Over the course of time, the world pushes you. If some is good, more is better. Let's go make more sales. Like, let's go get investors. Let's take on more. Let's be more. Let's do more. Stagnation is the enemy. How have you been able to channel that into your focus, into, patiently allowing the growth to be a subtle diffusion, as opposed to managing your ego and just being like, you know what, we've already done it. I've already figured it out every step of the way. Let's just go big or go home, which can be very dangerous for startups sometimes. How have you managed that dial of like growth versus refinement?
It's a great freaking question, man. It's hard. And I don't think I've managed it great at times, to be honest with you, because there's, you see both sides of it. And we grew with very little funding. We did a small fundraising round about a year ago. And that's it. We brought in maybe $1 million into the business. The rest was just bootstrapped. So, we were growing at this kind of steady rate, and then all of a sudden it's like in 2023, it's like you're seeing a company like Plunge blow up. You're seeing some of these other companies come into the market, and it's a tough thing, because on one hand you're like, all right, let's continue with our steady, slow growth. But on the other hand, it's like, we don't want to miss the boat. And like, now's the time for us to go all in on this and quote unquote, go big or go home. So I think naturally I lean more towards that, like, go big or go home. Like, let's swing the swing and take the shot and go big and dream big, set audacious goals, and scared money don't make no money. Let's play some bets and let's take some shots. And then Rob leans way more towards the risk averse, more conservative side of like, of steadiness and slowness and growth. And so naturally we balance each other out to kind of the middle of the road, which I think is where you want to be.
Absolutely.
And that's been really helpful. And I think, again, goes back to having a good co-founder, a good leadership to be able to be with you to help kind of balance you out. So that's how I've navigated it. Is Rob and I rarely ever see something the same way or agree on something initially, which sounds horrible, but is actually a really beautiful thing.
Oh yeah.
Because we're also seeking to understand the other person's perspective.
But holding the space in the middle of that.
Yes.
That's where the magic really happens.
It is.
Like, hey, I've got this perspective. You've got that perspective. Right. Let's now have this honest conversation. I'm going to give you my lenses. You're going to give me yours. And because your arguments are good, I'm going to lean more towards you. And
totally.
Because my arguments are good, you're going to lean more towards me. And then we get to play a little in the messy middle, which is where the beauty happens.
That's so true. And, 3 years in business later, over 3 with development and everything, we've been working together for about 5 years. We haven't once had a disagreement that we haven't been able to like resolve right then and there. We've never gone to bed angry at each other, right? Like as couples say. Yeah. We've never gotten to the point where we're like, this is a hill that I'm willing to die on, and like it's this way. Like I'm pulling the card. You have to acquiesce. We've never gotten to that point because we've had some heated conversations and some expressive conversations, some colorful interactions, but we've always done that and approached that with the perspective and the humility of the perspective of like, let me try to understand where you're coming from, because you have a perspective that I don't. And if you can both be like, I want to understand what you're saying, then again, you kind of open up that space for the magic to happen in the middle. So that's been everything.
The most successful people are comfortable having uncomfortable conversations.
Ain't that the truth?
Right. Without them, all of these things float into the abyss or get swept under the rug.
Yep.
Until it creates a chemical shitstorm.
Yep.
And then it's hard to put out at that point.
And that's one thing as an entrepreneur, and something I'm grateful for in these last couple of years, is I've gotten really good at having really hard conversations. And it's not easy.
It epitomizes the ice bath. That's one of those transferable skills. Do the hard thing, and on the other side of this, you're moving the needle towards what you absolutely want.
Absolutely. I had to have a hard conversation on Friday. I have another hard conversation this afternoon I have to have. And they don't get easier, but you get better at them. Yeah. Same thing with the ice bath. Like, it never gets easier getting in there, but you get better at accepting it and moving into it and settling into it.
How do you compartmentalize, right? Like, you are putting maybe personal on the back end right now. You're putting this conversation later into a file cabinet or a box to revisit later, to be in the present moment with me now, to share the vision, the ethos, the mission, where it could go, where it was, and the beauty of Edge Theory Labs. How do you manage that? At the end of the day, you are a human.
Right.
And like, it's all interconnected. There's an anticipation for the hard thing. There's frustration. There's your lenses, their lenses, all the things. How do you manage that?
Yeah, great question. Couple things come to mind. First is a line from Richard Branson that I love, which is, I don't call work work and play play. To me, it's all just life. So to me, there's this really, and that's something that is so important to me. And I don't know how I could not do it if I wasn't truly aligned. Like if I was selling olive presses or I was flipping cars, like I could not be doing what I'm doing right now, because there's such an alignment with who I am, what I'm selling, and the lifestyle that I'm building. There's such a seamless alignment. It's the only way that I can't imagine. Like you have to really freaking love it to make it worth what the heartaches it puts you through. And I really freaking love it. So to me, it's this like, in this like the way I'm showing up in this conversation now is no different than the way that I'm showing up for my one-on-one with Kat later today. And it's no different than I'm going to show up for the hard conversation I have to have later, or a conversation I'm going to have with my investor, or a conversation I have with my friend when I'm, when we're playing basketball on Wednesday nights and we're like shooting the shit outside of hoops and on our off game. Like it's, I'm working on showing up as, it's all just Joshua. It's all just me. And it's all just different expressions of who I am. And that creates this seamless thing and allows me to have more energy so that I'm not drained trying to put on this front or persona on a podcast or on a conversation. Like that's exhausting, switching those hats. Yeah. So that's one thing that comes up. And then the other thing is something that I'm working on. I love Michael Singer from the Surrender Experiment on Tethered Soul. I listen to his podcasts all the time. And it's all about just taking it one step at a time and being present with what's in front of you, because me worrying about that conversation later is not going to do me any good. And it's trust my resolve that I will figure it out when I will get there. So it is focusing on compartmentalizing in that way. I would say is more like living as presently as possible and knowing that putting any brain space towards what's going to happen later does me no good in this moment. It just takes away and detracts. And that's a practice. It's not perfect by any means. It's hard practice, but it's a practice I work at. And then the third thing that comes to mind is something that I learned from mountain climbing, which I love doing mountain climbing as well and hope to be doing more of that. But climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in 2019.
Congrats, man.
Thanks.
We just had Richard Bailey on the podcast, who's the mayor of Coronado.
Yes, I saw that. And I tuned into that episode, actually.
He summited Mount Everest.
That's right. So great.
So badass.
Yeah, that's a next level. Everest, I don't know if Everest is on my scope, maybe, but you have to actually really be at peace with knowing that there's a chance you don't come back from Everest.
Oh yeah.
And it's way out of your control from an avalanche happening, like out of your control.
Also just the winds that are up there.
Yeah.
Right. And the altitude sickness, like how's your physiology manage a lot of the various elements?
All those. Up there? Yeah. I was talking with Mike Posner, who's become a good friend. And,
think you're cooler than me.
Yeah, exactly. And he's big into this, in this world of advocacy. He's a Wim Hof instructor and sharing his journey, and he climbed Everest and he was just like, I wouldn't do it again. Like I've got too much to do in this life. And he's just like, honestly, I wouldn't do it if I were you. Like I realized on there, I'm like, I love my life too much to to risk it again for this. But one of the things I've learned through mountain climbing and through triathlon and through the adversities of the intensities of some of those moments when you're deep into the pain, into the hurt locker, right? When you're on mile 18 of the marathon and you're digging deep and it hurts. One of the phrases that I learned from mountain climbing is, I will be in my tent tonight. No matter how tough today is, like I will be in my tent tonight. I will be in my bed tonight is how I replicate that. So no matter what comes up today, no matter how hard today is, no matter what conversations I have, I will be in my bed tonight. I will make it through and I will be in my bed tonight. Similar to the Navy SEAL mentality of just make it to the next meal. It's like, I will be in my bed tonight. And that helps so much, knowing that, like, especially when you wake up early and you've got this whole day ahead and there's that looming conversation or that difficult thing that you have going on or that tough workout, you're in the throes of it, whatever's going on. It's like, I will be in my bed tonight. I will be there.
I'm going to adopt that. I like that a lot.
Yep. It's a good one.
That's cool. Leadership. That's a whole podcast episode in and of itself.
Sure is.
It's easy and cliche on a podcast to say something along the lines of be married to the process and divorced from the outcome. But leadership is this beautiful thing in the sense of you have to be accountable for the results, especially to the investors, to your team, to payroll, to striving to execute the vision. But that's tough because going back to ideologies that we talked about offline, there's what's in your control and then what's out of your control. Oftentimes the results are out of your control. Yeah. You talked about right place, right time, huge sales, here's our huge ROI on ad spend early on. A lot of that was really out of your control.
Absolutely.
It was like it was like internet real estate and how you positioned yourself.
Exactly.
So like when I think about leadership and I kind of mentioned some of these things, how have you adopted the willingness and the ability to manage uncertainty and then diffuse confidence into your team?
Yeah, it's great. And I wish I could go back to myself as we were on that rise. Like it felt like, oh, nothing can stop us and it's going to continue this way. And you're confident about the things you're putting into place. You're in that growth mode. You're in that scale mode. You're just like, this is the way it's going to go. Like, I wish I could go back and tell myself, like, that's exactly the time you need to like chill out and like temper and know that like this shall pass and this too shall pass. I love it. We said it earlier in the podcast, but I love, from King Solomon in Hebrew, the words are ze yavor v'gam ze yavor, which means this shall pass and this too shall pass. Most of the time we just say, and this too shall pass. But the whole line is actually this shall pass and this too shall pass, which I love because it's like the highs shall pass and the lows shall pass. This shall pass, the good, and this too, and the bad. So it's the full spectrum of whatever you're going through now. It's like whether it's highs or lows, good or bad, it's like this all shall pass. Like we're all temporary. We're only going to be here for a few dozen trips around the sun, and then we shift forms into whatever's next. Our bodies expire. So like this is all passing. So I like that's a big lesson that I learned, and you don't learn that until you go through that. And so that's as an entrepreneur, as a young entrepreneur, like that's such invaluable experience for me to be able to have under my belt, so that I know that as we continue growing Edge and whatever's after Edge and whatever that comes, that like there's all these learned experiences from it, and it goes. So one of the things I say every single day with my team is control the controllables. Like I think you just said it there, but it's control the controllables. What's in our control? What can we focus on? Our attitude, how we show up, our inputs over outputs. What are the leading inputs we're focused on, especially in sales? Like anybody that does sales, you learn this intimately. It's like, focus on your controllables. You know how many calls you need to make to get an appointment booked, how many appointments booked you need to get to an invoice sent, how many invoices sent you need to get to a sale. Like you can't control that output sale for the day, but you can control how many dials you're making that morning, right? So there's that process. So that's one thing that I say, and it's really essential to have a team and my core people on my team and leadership in our team that is aligned on this mindset, on this very personal development, spiritual development mindset of control the controllables. And sometimes the wind is in your face and you just got to outlast and you got to adjust your sail to the wind and you got to navigate what you're going through. But we can always control our attitude. We can always control how we show up, and we got to control the controllables.
So well said, man. What's next for Edge?
What's next for Edge? We got some fun stuff up our sleeves. We're getting ready to launch a sauna, actually, which is fun. We're launching a barrel style sauna with high heat, so it's going to be badass.
Awesome.
So sauna is going to be coming soon, and then just working on getting this Edge app out to more people in the Edge Tub Core, which you were epic model for. Thank you again for that.
Appreciate it.
If you go to our website, you'll see your face all over there for Edge Tub Core, which is our more affordable entry level ice-based product. So it's like Ice Barrel. The goal with it is that it's the entry level that gets people hooked on it for $200, $300. You can, and then the app you can get up to speed, feel the addiction start to develop, feel the results start to happen, and then you're going to be a lot more likely to want to upgrade towards a more sustainable long-term solution.
I love the vision there, man, because it really aligns with a low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
And some people just don't know what they don't know, just based on minimal experience, and they don't want to fully invest on the huge price point until they get the entry-level experience. Yep. And I think going through each step of purchasing the ice, having ice bath get-togethers, being frustrated based on the purchase of the ice, the cleanliness, all the things, you have to go through that a little bit in order to fully appreciate the experience.
See the value too. Yep.
Yeah, and so I really love that you guys have done that. I also think it's really important to give people an option, right? Like you may have this, you may have that. At the end of the day, like getting into some sort of cold water where you're present in a moment, leaning into your breath and letting go of all the external distractions, I think is beneficial. And I think I really appreciated how you described it. It doesn't have to be 35 degrees. Right? Like I would probably start people similarly to you around like that 55, 57 degree mark, you know, hold their hand or co-pilot with them, not be too aggressive about like getting the armpits and the thyroid and the groin in there, like super like open and vulnerable. Just get in and get out. Okay, after that, let's get in. Let's try our best to like surrender to the experience. Let's not fight. Let's not be tense. And then over the course of time, maybe you do play with a clock. Or my first time of doing it was listening to the song Beasts of Burden by the Rolling Stones.
I love it. Great
And
song.
I was like, okay, I'm just going to surrender to this song. The song is very connective to me and my family. And I just want to be with them for a moment and kind of have that experience. And now my practice has evolved to like playing around with that state, like you've talked about. Like, where are my walls? Why are my walls there? Right when I feel that urge to run away, let's just be with that for a moment. Let's take 3 deep nasal breaths with an elongated exhale. And then on the other side of that, it's like, are you ready to get out? Do we feel good? Are we running from this? Am I choosing to get out or am I running from the discomfort? And I think what happened just now, I got curious, right? And like, what's the best protocol? All of them and none of them.
That's great. I love that. Yeah.
Right? Like the answer is always, it depends.
Always.
And I think it's just cool that, you know, within your experience, the way you're sharing the vision and the story ideation, it's around like, get cold, do it often, share with friends. And as a byproduct, you'll enhance the quality of your life.
That's it, man. That's it. Simple. So that's it, man. That's I love that. Sharing that message with more people. And then the other big thing we're excited about is our Sunrise Social Club that has been gaining great momentum and traction here in San Diego. We do it about twice a month right now throughout the rest of the fall into the new year. We're locked up with One Paseo in the grassy area behind Harlan Brewing Company. It's an awesome event. It's you come, we'll do a yoga or a workout kind of core class, 30 minutes of that. I lead 30 minutes of breath work, and then we shift gears into the ice bath, and it's just a big party, music bumping. We have other brands there, so you get to experience some new brands, get some beverages, coffees there. So we do some cool connection exercises in the beginning as well to be able to like make some new friends, get to know people. And I think there's just this craving right now of people wanting to get back in real life and connect with people. You're seeing these run clubs blow up, people wanting to connect with like-minded people doing something that they want to be doing, not just late night at a bar or not just like at a house party, but actually doing something good for themselves. And so we're planning on continuing doing that through the fall and even expanding that eventually to some other cities to bring that Sunrise Social Club out there. So that's something else we're excited about. And for anybody listening in San Diego, definitely come check it out.
I love that, man. I got to get to one of those.
Yeah,
I'm
we got to
like
have you.
Excited over here. I got
Heck
goosebumps thinking about
Heck
like meeting
yeah.
new friends and doing the thing.
You're going to love it.
I love it, man. Where can people find you?
Instagram, I would say, is the best place for people to stay in touch and find me. My Instagram's at Joshua Dean Church. I'm sure we'll have it in the show notes. And then our Instagram for Edge at Edge Theory Labs. That's the best place. Link in, check in, follow along the journey, and see the exciting stuff that we have coming up, like the Sunrise Social Club events, like our Edge Winter Retreat we're about to go on pre-sale for. So some good things in the pipeline, I would say, that's the best spot.
I love it, man. Get out of your body and into your mind. Get high on your own supply.
That's it.
Guys, thank you so much for listening to my conversation with Joshua Church today, the founder of Edge Theory Labs. If you enjoyed my conversation today, please rate, review, subscribe, and share with your friends. And as always, stay on the hunt for who you've not yet become. Until next time.